y'all, I'm Ashland.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Marla.
And welcome back to Lecturing Ladies. This is my season. This is my second time around, and I'm a little more prepared, I feel like, than last time. I actually put thoughts onto paper rather than just going off my brain. So we'll see. I may end up rambling for a lot longer, but hopefully not. My season is on cults, and I'm really excited. I'm kind of doing backwards of what Marla did as far as timeline's concerned. I'm starting with the most recent that some of you may have possibly even heard of. Maybe. And today we're talking about Nexium.
The pill?
Sounds like a medication.
It is a medication. This is Nexium, the cult, and it has no vowels because it's very cool and edgy. Ooh. It's NXIVM, Nexium.
No time for,
yeah, no time for vowels. And it doesn't look like it should sound at all.
Did you just say NXIVM because I's a vowel?
Oh, it did. Yeah, it is.
Minimal vowels.
Minimal vowels. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Minimal vowels.
I'm that person.
Okay.
Minimal vowels.
We know you are. It's fine. Anyways, NXIVM does not spell Nexium at all, but that's what we're going. That's what they call it. So that's what we're going with. Okay. Nexium was started in 1998 by Keith Raniere. A couple of fun facts about Keith. He doesn't say he's a god necessarily. However, he is a higher being because he claims to have been speaking in full sentences by the age of 1, reading completely by the age of 2. He was a piano and judo prodigy by the age of 8. And he was very briefly, before it was shown to be false, very briefly in the Guinness Book of World Records as one of the smartest men alive because supposedly he took an IQ test and scored a 240. Apparently it's not quite as hard to get in the Guinness Book of World Records as you might hope it would be, but they did catch him in a lie and they took him out. Yeah, it's just expensive, pretty much. Yeah.
So they would assume you wouldn't pay for it unless there was, okay.
So that's some fun facts about Keith. He started this Nexium as a...
Is he from the Pacific Northwest?
No. He's from the Northeast.
Oh, well.
Yeah. He started this company right outside of Albany, New York, and with a lady named Nancy Salzman, who we'll get to know a little more later. But it's started and branded as a personal development company. So they sell, I'm going to use air quotes like 1,000 times. If you're not watching this, I'm sorry, because just assume air quotes are around like everything I say. They sell seminars that teach you how to experience more joy out of your life and all these like wonderful candy coated great things that like sound really cool and who would not want to be a part of.
I mean, some of us like darkness, but okay.
Yeah, at the height of its popularity, I guess, there was about 16,000 people involved in Nexium, and people who had attended their seminars. Okay, so also little disclaimer, I guess. You could attend the seminars and not be a part of Nexium. Like you could go to one and be like, okay, this is not like probably for me, so I'm out. But you went to one, and the Dalai Lama went to one.
Oh,
okay. So like they had some polls. There was quite a few famous people. Richard Branson went to one. There was some big top guy from Enron, Scott or something, maybe. I don't remember his name. He went to one.
Madonna probably went to one.
Probably. So I mean, you're thinking about becoming like going to this seminar to make yourself better, and they're like, the Dalai Lama came, and you're like, well, shit. I mean, if he gave it a shot, it might be worth something. Let's try it.
Also the Enron guy.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously made all the right choices. But this was before they collapsed, I guess. So maybe
because then he was in jail.
Yeah. So Nexium is an umbrella company, and there's a lot of like different factions underneath that we'll kind of learn about as we go on. But they had a child care center, which was like international, and they had schools all over the place and kids. It was kind of based on like Montessori learning. Like kids learned a whole bunch of languages, but like they didn't really have to learn anything, and it was very free form and whatever. And then there's like a women's group, a women's empowerment group, and then there's a men's empowerment group, and all this fucking bullshit. We'll learn about more later. Seminars work kind of the same way that like our friends in Scientology do things. So you go to this seminar and it's like $1,500, and you go and you learn how to like be a better person, and you walk in and here's your first red flag. You have to sign an NDA when you walk through the door, because their tactics and learning things are proprietary information that they don't want you sharing with anyone. So number one, if you walk into a seminar and they make you sign an NDA, to borrow a line from My Favorite Murder, sweetie, you're in a cult, call your dad. That's not normal. But the way they did things was, okay, so you go to this first seminar, you learn all this stuff, you come out feeling good, because the first seminar is very like bubbles and rainbows, and we're going to just empower each other, and we're going to all be better, and we all just want to be happy and successful, and it's great. Okay.
Well,
so
yeah, I mean, you got to get the hook in somehow.
Yeah. So that was $1,500. And after that, they're like, okay, now you're ready for step 2. Step 2 is $5,000. It's 4 days long.
But you're the best little seminar attender ever.
Yeah.
And you are super special.
So good. And and they catch you on the way out. So you have that like, God, that was so amazing. I feel so good. I'm high almost.
It's fresh in your mind.
Yes. So then you catch on to that one. And so
all I've learned is I can't be a cult member even if I wanted, because I'm too poor.
Yes.
It's too expensive being cult.
It's very expensive.
We're safe.
These go on and on and on, and Nexium worked kind of similarly. I guess Keith pulled this from like his judo days, but similarly to like martial arts, where you have like your different colored belts for like what rank I guess you are, or I don't know what they call it in martial arts, but whatever. They had sashes. So you had different colored sashes, and then once you got a sash, you got white stripes on your sash. So there was like an orange one. You get orange, and then you get 4 white stripes, and once you earn your 5th, or metaphorical 5th white stripe, you actually go to the next color, and then so on. You get 4 stripes on that color, and then you move to the next one. Whatever. Keith's the one at the very, very top of this, which we will learn is just a pyramid scheme. He's at the very top. He has a white sash because he's not a god, but like really fucking close. And then it goes on down from there. Nancy is the next most powerful person in the cult. And the reason he brings Nancy in is because just a couple years before starting Nexium, Keith actually started another pyramid scheme company that he had complaints from over 20 states, and people were trying to start suing him. So he had to sign a agreement with the state of New York that he would never start another pyramid scheme company again. So he partnered up with Nancy. So technically she could start the company, and that was their workaround.
If you promise not to do this again.
Pretty much.
Pinky swear.
Like if
that's your
second
second red flag. If someone says to start a business, also ladies, if a man says, "Can you buy this house in your name?" If anything has to be done in your name, don't do it.
There's something wrong. So that's where Nancy comes in. She is not gonna
idiot.
Yeah. She's a hypnotist.
Evil or an idiot.
And that's kind of what she brings to the table for him.
Hypnotizing and signatures. Got it.
Yes. So you'll kind of learn Nexium, like I'm sure a lot of cults do that we'll learn, grabs different teachings and principles from like stuff that is somewhat trustworthy along the way, and kind of bundles them all together. So like you're like, oh, okay, well I've heard of that before, so that checks out. Or like hypnosis, I've heard hypnosis can work on some people, so we'll try that. Or like Ayn Rand's teachings of I mean, maybe that's not like the best one. So read that. And then, yeah, exactly. Then maybe you'll back off, but I don't know, maybe not. But they use parasites from her teachings, and then suppressives from, again, Scientology. They use the same thing when someone in your life is not wanting you to better yourself by paying all this money to Nexium and go to all these great seminars and workshops and move to Albany into their little compound when your grandma's like, baby girl, that doesn't seem like a great idea. Grandma's not smart.
Wait, they have a compound?
She's suppressive. Yes, they do. She's not smart. She's a suppressive, and you need to X her out of your life.
That's your third red flag. If somebody has a fucking compound.
Yeah. What it was it was outside of Albany, and it was it was a subdivision, like a subdivision of houses, but only the people who lived in there were Nexium members. So, like, it wasn't necessarily a requirement. Like, it's not like there was walls around it or anything, but, like, no one bought a house there unless they were a Nexium member.
Wow.
Let me guess, the realtor was an Nexium member?
Yes, and they had their own accountant and all that good stuff. They also had some famous members. Allison Mack from Smallville is probably the most
I
recognized
remember this. Yes.
Yeah. Now that's kind of the one that like brings people around to it because she was heavily involved and very public about her involvement, and she was also very heavily involved in some of the darker stuff that we'll get to in a minute, and she's going to jail. Sarah Edmondson, who is a Canadian actress, and she's actually the one who kind of exposed everything that Nexium was about and kind of brought the whole ship down back in 2017. Claire and Sarah Bronfen, which are the heiresses to the Seagram's fortune, like Seagram's gin. Those ladies. That's part of how they were able to get all this money. At one point, the sisters opened up like a $2 or $3 million line of credit that they gave to Nexium, and all Nexium had to do to repay it was seminars. Like, just let us come to your seminars and you can have this $2 million or whatever it was.
Wow.
So I told y'all that, they used NDAs to keep their information like closed or whatever. And one of their tactics for people who tried to like leave Nexium was they sued you.
I think this is red flag number 4.
Yeah, this is 4. Okay. So that's what they did there. There's a ton of lawsuits, but one of the ones I looked at was Nexium sued the Ross Institute, which the guy's name is Rick Ross, not the rapper, but he is a cult specialist. And he did a critique on Nexium and called it expensive brainwashing. And he made that assumption from looking at the manual of an ex-Nexium member who they also sued because she gave away that information after signing that NDA. So that's a little quick overview. And now I'm going to kind of dive into some of the different specifics. Nexium had a 12-point mission statement that during every class you would go into and practice, recite it like the Pledge of Allegiance, but it's their mission statement. I'm not going to read it because it's literally like this long.
How do you recite that?
I mean, it's 12 points. It's like a lot of fucking words, but essentially it's like, we don't want to be victims. You choose to be a victim. My life is going to be only as good as I want it to be, blah, 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 blah. They're very, the further you get into this, the more and more and more you realize how dangerous the line of thinking is. So their practice, one of their main practices was that you can only choose to be a victim. And that people who cry victim are more abusive than the people who originally abused them. Jesus. So
okay.
So yeah. So if you were,
so it's not the rapist or whatever, but it's you crying about being raped.
Because rape, men just can't help themselves. They just have sex because they're animals. So that's not actually an abuse.
Cages, then.
Yeah, that's not actually an abuse, but you complaining and victimizing yourself is an abusive reaction to something that happened to you.
You're making them feel bad.
Yes. So during these classes, by the way, were like 12 to 16 hours a day.
And I'm paying you $5,000 to tell
You're paying them like a fuck ton of money, and you're there literally like 2/3 of your day. And they covered all
like
different things. Yeah, literally, but crazier. Okay, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it depends on the college.
Really.
I was going to say, I didn't go to class for 16 hours a day. I don't know where the hell you went.
They had different things that they covered in classes. Like one of them was called relationship sourcing, and you would go into the class, and one of the tactics they would use and like thought processes or thoughts they would get you to walk through is I would go to class and I get to talk about what benefits would I get if my partner suddenly died. So if David just died real fast, what good things would happen to me because of that?
I mean, there's look on the bright side, and then there's insanity.
Yeah, and it was supposed to be used to kind of further along the thinking that you are autonomous and nothing that happened outside of the cult, outside of Nexium, was really that important. So like if you did lose your spouse because they were like, hey girl, you in a cult, we gotta go, that really wasn't that important because there would be benefits of you losing them. Like you get to stay with your cult friends. And
I mean, no more man cold bitching, I guess.
There we go.
Okay, so red flag number 5. If they think it's okay for your husband to die.
Yes, and just talk about the benefits of that. There's other seminars. Exploration of Meaning was EM was a popular seminar they did where you kind of like dived into dark childhood memories and like traumatic situations, and they would tell you why it was good that those things happened to you and why you shouldn't care, basically.
Oh, Christ.
Okay.
Okay.
Then there was a class called Dracula and
like
his
being
ghouls.
locked in a closet made you really flexible because you had a
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And you probably deserved to be there anyways.
Plus, you're kind of like Harry
supposed to
Potter
be
now, so that's super cool.
Yeah. So Dracula and his ghouls is probably my favorite seminar they did because it covered psychopaths and their followers. So how the fuck these people sat in there, learned about psychopaths and their followers, and weren't like
deflection.
This shit sounds mad familiar, but they didn't. So whatever.
Teaching about werewolves.
You know what though? It's like when a cheater accuses you of cheating because they're cheating.
Right? Maybe it's like that reverse
yeah.
psychology, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
So Nexium controlled a lot of things in their members' lives. So, for example, women were put on very strict diets. They had to maintain a certain weight, and
me and Marla are like, nope, we out.
Poor and too fat.
They preyed on like
that's red flag number 6.
Yeah, they preyed on like the insecurities that women have, like most women have, and like, oh, a way for you to feel better about yourself and to be happier in life is for you to lose this weight. So here's this diet, and you do this, and there we go. We'll all be happy together because we're all gonna be hungry.
And you probably have to pay extra for that diet stuff too.
It probably costs extra. So they also did,
but you can get real skinny if you have no money to buy food after you gave it all to Nexium. See,
right there. So they had the diet. They practiced hypnosis, like we talked about a little bit. They also used Neuro-Linguistic Programming, which NLP people used to think it was real. Now it's been like proven it's a pseudoscience. It's not real, but it's the thought that what you say directly affects your actions, which it does, but you can't change your behaviors only by speaking about them. And so they thought if you, I mean, basically it's just like a really fancy way to say they manipulated you, but they would talk to you and use your answers to certain questions about like where you are in life or where you want to be or whatever, and twist the answers to get them always back to the best thing for you in your life is Nexium. The best thing for you in your life is to continue to grow and learn and take all these seminars and spend all this money, because that's what Nexium is going to do for you. But just essentially, like, anytime anybody was talking to you, any of the higher ups were talking to you, they were continually trying to sell you on the cult. Even if you were in it, it was like they had to convince you even more, because then your job is to go out and recruit more people. Because again, this is just a big, gigantic pyramid scheme. Okay, so the subgroups. There's Nexium, and then there's the Garden of the Creators, which is the child care schools that we talked about, where they learn all the languages and stuff.
Montessori things, yeah.
Yes. Then there's JNES, which is a large women's, or primarily targeted towards women group. This was started in 2006 by Keith Raniere. It's described on the website. Well, the website doesn't work anymore, but you can still look at the screenshots from it. A women's movement that facilitates an ongoing exploration of what it means to be a woman. The website, like, when you look at the screenshots, it's like pink and purple and flowers and bubbles and pretty scripty fonts and like hashtag feminism and hashtag empowerment and like.
See, they get you with that innocuous statement, and like, oh look, it's
we're just all empowering each other, but really,
and then it's probably like, you fucking suck.
That's exactly
what you need to change.
So you go to these classes, and so it costs money to be in Nexium, but then if you're in any of these subgroups, it costs extra money because duh. So JNES had 11 8-day workshops that they offered, and each 8-day workshop cost $5,000. So it's like $55,000 to be in this group. And when they got you in, so we're talking about feminism and empowerment and all these fun words. And then you get there and they're actually like, okay, so you can't help this, but women are naturally very narcissistic, super irresponsible. You're inclined to play the victim throughout your life because that's how you've been conditioned. And we're here to fix you.
So, I mean, they're not wrong necessarily for all of us.
So,
but I don't need to pay $55,000 to be told this.
So that's where, in order to get these better, this is where the diet comes back in. This is where, like, the seminars come in, and they're going to talk you through how to not be a raging narcissist for $55,000. It's very affordable and totally makes sense.
So we're going to fix you and make you better, but not a narcissist while we make you better.
Right. And it's one of those, like, the funniest thing to me is they, branded it as like, oh, it's for feminists and this is great. And then you get in there and it's like the most sexist thing you've ever been a part of. Like, you are just worthless and it's only because you're a woman. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. That's just how you are. So that's JNES. Then for the men, you had the Society of Protectors.
Yeah.
Of course, they have a cooler
name. Society of Protectors?
Yes, of course their name's cooler. So it was not, so JNES was 2006. Society of Protectors was founded in 2011, and it was supposed to build character and turn boys into men. They were required to provide collateral in order to be in this group. They also had to pay money for their seminars. Their collateral was usually money, and it was somewhere like, well, anywhere between like $100 and $1,500. And the rule was like, well, if you act the way you're supposed to act and do what we tell you to do, then eventually you'll get your collateral back. But we just keep it to hold you accountable.
Security deposit.
Yeah, we keep it
on your life
you accountable and make sure you do right. But if you don't act right, then we're going to keep that money. And nobody ever acted right, so they kept all the money, always. They had to participate in readiness drills. So, like, say they're asleep and their phones or whatever go off at 2 a.m., they have to get up and do this readiness drill, which it could be like, weather emergency stuff, or like what would happen if a member went missing. We don't call the police, we just go find them ourselves, and all this stuff, because they operated under like a no man left behind thing, which I mean, it's not all bad, but I mean, like I said, there's tiny things where you're like, oh, that's a good thought, but
yeah.
So the Society Protectors, the way they kind of heavily manipulated them, with women they had the diets and the self-deprecation of like, you're not good enough, you don't look good enough, you don't act right, blah blah blah. With men, it was, they almost relied more on like their physical what's the word, like if you're not getting enough sleep, like your sleep schedule is always messed up from these readiness drills. Yes, deprivation, thank you. You're always having to report to this higher up. You're kind of at their will because you almost don't really think properly. Like they said, these people usually average like 4 hours of sleep a night. And but it wasn't always the same 4 hours of sleep. Like you may go to sleep at 8 o'clock and then get woken up at 9 o'clock and then don't go back to sleep till 2. Or you may go to sleep at 8 and not get waken up until 4, or like anything in between. Like it was all insane.
Right.
So that's kind of what they fed on for that. Then this is the part where they fucked up and got themselves really in the shit. There was another feminist group within the feminist group, and it was called DOS, and it was a secret society. DOS stands for, I'm going to totally fuck this up because this is like Greek, I'm pretty sure, but we're going to try anyway. Dominus Obsequious Sororium, which roughly translates to Master of Female Companions.
Oh dear.
Or as like one of the members translated, Master over Female Slaves. This group was supposed to be for women only, and it was like girl power. This is how we learn how to succeed and exist in society without men. Like fuck men, we don't even need them. Come on, let's all learn how to do everything we need to do. However, without knowing all these people who were joining this group, good old Keith is like, again, at the very top. Because this is also like a pyramid within the already big pyramid that they're in. Mm-hmm. So, Keith Rainier is at the top of DOS. And he has 8 slaves, which are called first liners. And Allison Mack was one. Lauren Salzman was one. And she is the daughter of Nancy, who he started the thing with. And there were some others. And then each of those slaves recruited their own slaves. And then each of those slaves recruited their own slaves, and so on.
They call themselves slaves?
They call themselves slaves. Slaves and masters.
Flag number, what are we at, 7?
7, I think.
7, yeah.
They call themselves slaves. That was the terminology that they used. They also had to provide
yourself calling yourself a slave.
I don't know. It gets worse. It gets a lot worse. So they also had to provide collateral, but where the men provided money, the women had to provide blackmail material. So this could be like video confessions. So like your deepest, darkest secrets that you don't want out. You would have to record them, and they would hold them. And if you acted right, they wouldn't release them. But if you didn't, they could. So you have to act right. Or nude photos, but not just nude photos, like explicitly nude photos with your face in it, so you can never deny that it's you. And if you didn't, they had to provide their collateral continuously. Like a couple places I saw was like a few times a year. Some places I saw was like once a month they had to provide collateral. Like it was continuous. Mm-hmm. So say like you ran out of shit to tell them, you would just have to make stuff up. And so there was one girl who she wrote a letter to her family confessing that she was a prostitute and had been a prostitute for years and all of this horrible stuff. She wasn't. It was a lie, but she didn't want that to ever get out, so she had to act right. They also branded their members with a symbol that was supposed to be like the elements, like earth, wind, and fire, and water. I guess that's one too. But it's actually a K with like an R in the middle of it.
Oh, so for Keith Rainier.
Yeah. And also, so some fraternities still brand to this day.
Right.
However, most of the time branding, when you think of that or cattle branding, if you've ever thought of it's a brand, like a heat and a stick.
Yeah.
It looks like pyramids inside of a pyramid. Is this it?
Yes. Okay. But you see how if you turn it sideways, it looks like a K and an upside down R.
Yep.
So.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, okay. So you think of like heat and stick. All at one time, it's going to hurt like hell, but like it's one time and done. That was actually done with a cauterizing pen. So it's one line at a time. And it was done by a doctor who was a part of Nexium. And it was part of their initiation process to be in DOS. So
this is just DOS. It's not the entire.
This is not entire Nexium. This is a secret society. This is how other people know you're in.
Super special ones.
But it's so super special that like it's down on your bikini line, so it's not like it's on your arm. So people are like, "Oh, she's in." It's like you got to be in to know I'm in. But anyways, so Allison Mack, Smallville girl that we know and probably maybe loved at one point. She's huge in this group. She recruits like crazy. Some people even say that the K and the R, that the K is for the K in Mac or something. I don't know. I think it's Keith Rainier, but whatever. Right. They say that she helped him come up with the symbol and she was one of the first ones branded, blah, 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 blah. There's a podcast called Escaping Nexium that if you're at all interested in this, you should listen to because it's like a 10-part and it goes through Sarah that I talked about earlier, the Canadian actress. She's the one who like blew the lid off the whole thing. It's her story and it's amazing. But in that podcast, she talks about like going to Lauren Salzman's house. That was her master. And when she gets there, Lauren's like, go upstairs. This is the initiation. And she'd been there before. She was very comfortable with Lauren. Slaves and masters had good relationships.
Jesus.
And so she goes upstairs and Lauren follows her and she says, okay, there's like 5 or 6 of y'all here. Everybody's getting initiated today. Go in that bedroom and take all your clothes off.
Normal.
And Sarah's like, that seems weird to me. And she's like, that's because you're body conscious and you're victimizing yourself. Go take your clothes off. It's just me and a bunch of women that you should be comfortable with, and you should feel good about yourself. Just do it. Stop me. Get out of your head. So she does it, bring them all together, and then they line up outside a room and wait to get branded. And she talks about how when you're standing outside the room, you can hear them and they're screaming. And they had like one girl passed out from the pain, and another girl, they had to take her in a towel so she'd have something to bite on because she was screaming so loud. And it smelled like burning flesh in the hallway and all these wonderful. This is like red flag 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12.
Yeah.
But anyway, she stays and does it. Because I guess she's in too deep. I don't really know. But that was just part of not because she's in too deep. That was part of the slave mindset because they literally do anything and everything their master says. There's crazy stuff. Like if your master texts you, you had 1 minute to respond. And if you didn't respond, then they could release that collateral. And that was at like any time of day or night, didn't matter. If they asked you to do anything, you had to do it. And again, remember, Nexium is a company. So they are doing these seminars and like selling these books and shit. So they would tell them to, like, okay, go work this 12-hour seminar. But they're not getting paid for it. But you have to do it because your master told you to. They're literal slaves. And then, of course, this is where Keith comes back in. They're often told to sleep with him. And they have to.
Of course.
Their master said so.
Because what's a cult without
some sex? Exactly. Usually a man having sex with a bunch of women. A whole bunch. I'm going to start a reverse cult soon. Anyway.
Listen, I'm about to start one just get paid. Shit.
Right? Right?
I'll say.
So, that's what DOS was. So there's all of your subgroups, or most of your subgroups. Those are the most popular ones. And as we have learned so far, Keith is like kind of a super gross person. Another interesting fact I found, I got to looking at his charges, and I saw that he was charged with grooming. So I was like, wonder what that's
all those
about.
kids in that other fucking...
Yeah. So I went and looked, and apparently Nexium had a big following in Mexico as well as the United States. So anyway, there was this girl who was identified as Daniela in the court records. I don't know what her real name was. She was a minor at the time, obviously. And she came from Mexico to New York to work for Nexium at the age of 16. They think it was 16 when she finally got here. She worked just whatever he told her to do, basically. But she said primarily what she did was hacking against Nexium's enemies. So like people who tried to leave the cult, she would try to hack their bank accounts or whatever. Anyways, she was groomed by Keith and had sex with him just like a couple of days after her 18th birthday. She then found out that he was also sleeping with both of her sisters who had come to work for him. They all three got pregnant at different times by him and then had abortions because he said so. Yeah. So, and this is just one story that we know of. She actually did testify against him in his trial. And it gets even crazier because, okay, so she finds out he's having sex with her sisters. She gets upset, I guess, whatever. At some point, she confesses to him, like, hey, I'm having feelings for this other male member of Nexium. Well, he calls that a moral transgression, and she now has to be punished. So he cuts her off slowly from the outside world. He takes her phone, he takes her computer. He eventually takes her immigration papers, like her green card and all that stuff, so she can't leave because she has nothing to prove who she is, that she's there legally. She can't go back home, like she's just stuck. And this gets a little fuzzy because one place it says that she was held in her parents' home, and upon him like convincing them that they needed to be strict with her, he told them this story that she had stolen some money from him or from Nexium, and that she had to be punished for that moral transgression, and they needed to help him punish her. There was another one that said Lauren, our friend from the branding and all that, held her in her home, but it was for about 2 years that she was held hostage, and she had no contact with the outside world. She was not able to leave the home. All she could do was work for Nexium. She, like I said, no cell phone, no computer, none of that stuff. She couldn't. And when she was asked during the trial why she didn't just walk out, like why she didn't just leave, she said it was out of fear of, being cut off by her family. And then again, she had no legal documents to prove who she was or that she was there legally or to get her back home or any of that stuff.
Where's she going to go?
Exactly. So that
money?
Was the only thing that was like kind of fuzzy. Was a couple places said she was held in her family's home, and then a couple places said Lauren did it. So I don't know. Anyway, in 2017, 2020 aired an expose about Nexium and more specifically DOS with Sarah, and kind of showed everything that was going on. Keith was like, damn, I probably should get out of here, and goes to Mexico. And the Rich Seagram's twins that we talked about, they helped forge some documents to get him out of the country because he couldn't exactly leave as Keith Rainier because he was under investigation. So they got him out of the country with false, papers or whatever, passport shit. So they get charged for that later. But in 2018, Rainier is arrested in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico on charges sex trafficking, conspiracy to sex traffic, conspiracy to commit forced labor, and like a whole slew of other shit. Allison Mack is arrested a couple months later for racketeering, conspiracy to commit forced labor, Nancy Salzman, which is the lady that he started with to begin with, is charged with racketeering, conspiracy, a whole slew of other shit. They're basically all charged with the same thing, except for the twins. They got charged with conspiracy to conceal and harbor people because they were also those documents they forged for Keith to get over. They bought and forged to get people over from Mexico too. So, yeah, so that was 2018. They, Keith went to trial in 2019. He was found guilty on all accounts. He was just sentenced last year, though, in 2020, and he was sentenced to 120 years in prison. Allison Mack was she pled guilty to racketeering and forced labor. She did not. She's going to trial for the sex trafficking conspiracy charges, but she faces up to 40 years in prison. She has not been sentenced for anything yet. Nancy is awaiting her sentencing as well. All these people either pled guilty, like Nancy, Lauren, and the twins all pled guilty. Allison pled guilty to part of hers, and she's going to trial for the rest. But even though they pled guilty, hardly any of them have been sentenced because of all the COVID stuff. It says it's just like pushed everything back. But Nancy's waiting. She has like 40 months that she could get, which seems crazy to me since she helped start it. And Allison Mack didn't, and she's could get up to 40 years, but whatever. Lauren, hers was like somewhere between 40 and 80 months that she could possibly get. And then the twins they have been sentenced, and they were sentenced to 81 months, which is like 6 years and some change. I don't know. Something. So yeah, that's where everybody, all the super higher ups.
So what I'm hearing is if you're going to start a cult, just keep it at the pyramid scheme. Don't start calling people slaves. Don't get involved in sex trafficking. Don't
just do it
force them to sleep with you. Rob people blind, that's bad. That's not great.
Right. Not good on the surface of things.
But morally and criminally, it's less bad than lumping all that other stuff on top of it.
Correct. So that's
if anyone wants to join our money cult, strictly our money cult.
It's our Patreon is
patreon.com/mansplainbb podcast.
But seriously.
We will teach you how to enjoy YouTube videos a day early. I don't even know. Do we do that? Okay, we do that. You don't have to sign an NDA, though. You can go out there and tell everyone what we talk about.
More people, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. That's actually a requirement of the cult. You have to tell people about it. Yeah. Oh, that gets a little evangelical.
That gets slightly dicey. You don't have to recruit them to join. Just tell them.
Just tell them. Just spread the news. That's a little dicey still. I don't know. Anyway, so
we have no requirements, and you can cancel at any time.
Yes, you can get out at any time. So next week, I'm a little undecided still. I said I'm going in like chronological order. That's not exactly right. I just kind of went with like the newest, and then we're working our way back. But the other ones I picked all kind of happened around the same lump of time, sort of. So next week might be Heaven's Gate.
Ooh, I like Heaven's Gate. No, I shouldn't. No, that's that's bad word. Heaven's Gate is fascinating to me.
Fascinating. So yeah. So Heaven's Gate might be next week. Jim Jones might be next week. I don't know. We'll see. And then after those two, we're going international with our cults. So it'll be really fun. I'm really excited, and I'm very proud of myself for only talking for like 40 minutes. So bravo to me. And we will see you guys next Friday.
Friday.
You'll see this on Friday.
You get to kick your weekend off with cults. What is better than
that?
What
more could you want? See ya.
Bye.